Welcome to this county championship clash between Yorkshire and Somerset, live here from the county ground. Lovely to be presenting this to you on what is an absolutely gorgeous day. We've got not a cloud in the sky, the sun's out, and well, it is a lovely scene that presents us, but for those that want an exciting finish to a match, it probably is going to peter out to a draw, one would assume. Yorkshire resuming at 65 for 3, Adam Live on 37, Balance on 19. And Somerset, of course, have bowled a lot better. They bowled pretty well, actually, today, after Hildreth got a fantastic century. But we've got the field being arranged as I speak. And joining me today is
Edward Seaborn.
Indeed. Hello, Edward.
Hello.
And I'm Ben Manning, and the two of us will hopefully describe an exciting session. Who knows?
Yes, it might be truncated, but hopefully we'll see some good positive cricket in that session.
Yes, I mean, we'll be looking for some entertaining action. Certainly yesterday when I was here, it was an entertaining session of play that I commentated on. Trescothick getting out for 74 was a real shock because he was batting really well. And Dean Elgar was batting well too, so that was a surprise when he went. But it was good cricket yesterday, and it's a shame the match is kind of petering to an end. But at least it's not a loss for Somerset, as he comes now and bowls outside the off stump, and that's played well out onto the offside by Adam Lyth for no run. Jamal Hussain there, quite a tall figure, quite lean. Reminds me of, almost from here, of a very young Imran Khan, if you've seen the old video footage from long ago. But, yes, it's a beautiful sight. We've got the ground about 2/3 full at the moment. We always get such excellent attendances here in Somerset. We're very lucky, really. As Jamal Hussain comes in again. And he bowls, and that's wide outside the off stump and left alone. Interesting field. We've got a group of men on the offside keeping Lyth company. A kind of short cover, a point, and what is a short mid-off, really, and a conventional mid-off as well. Only one slip and a gully, a wide gully, a mid-on and a short mid-wicket, and quite a wide sort of fine leg as well. So unusual field, waiting for a drive.
Trescothick's been persisting with this line of attack, trying to get the left-handers out on the drive. We've seen this field quite a lot this afternoon.
All right, as saying, well, that's wide and thrashed away. Beautiful stroke. That's going to be 4 runs. Played with authority, panache, and some grace as well. Nice shot. He went back and absolutely thrashed that away. And the shot of a man who's well in. He's on 41 now, and it's a lovely cut stroke. And despite all those men facing him in that part of the field, didn't put him off, absolutely leathering that one away. It was a wide long hop, really, and was dealt with some pugnacity by this fine player, this left-hander. Yorkshire in a good position in this match, of course, but it's going to peter out, you feel, as Jamal Hussain comes in again and bowls outside the off stump, and that's played down to that man at what is a very wide sort of gully, and there's no run. So nice stroke, that.
Yeah, everything about Adam Lyth is exuding form at the moment. He's got 41 in addition to his 105, which I was lucky enough actually to see in the first innings. And right. He's been on terrific form in both these innings, particularly his offside play, which is why Trescothick has all these fielders in place, because he's a really strong driver of the ball, and sometimes strength being weakness in those occasions, perhaps.
Excellent point. As Hussain comes in again, and that's wide outside the off stump, having nothing to do with that one. These shoulders, arms, and yes, yesterday was puzzling because it was an important day. You felt that Somerset could have got themselves in a really dreadful position yesterday. We're in a pretty good position at one stage. Never in a position of dominance, but things were looking pretty steady, and then Hildreth thankfully rescued the ship, but there was a little bit of a worry at one stage that Somerset might get bowled out cheaply and it could be a horrific loss or something, but respectability has been achieved as Jamal Hussain comes in again and he bowls, and that's sort of middle and leg and whipped round the corner nicely down to that man on the fine leg boundary for a single, and that takes the score to 70 for 3. Overs remaining today 35, but I was over in the Colin Atkinson Pavilion, which is currently bathed in sunshine earlier, and people were saying to me that it's probably likely the cut-off time is about 10 to 5, so that's kind of the earliest we're likely to finish, given the situation in the match. But we might see some entertaining stroke play before then, if that's what happens.
And hopefully we'll see some good spin bowling from George Dockrell. The very occasional one turned, but really only the occasional one.
Well, George Dockrell, I'm a big fan of him, and the Irishman flips the ball from hand to hand, wearing sunglasses, and that beats him outside the off stump. But the keeper actually drops it there. But Trescothick there at first slip. We've got a short leg, and we've got a sort of short mid-wicket. We've got a mid-off, a mid-on, and a wideish cover as well, as Dockrell in his sunglasses comes in again, and that's miscued back to the bowler by Lythe. Barrow behind the stumps there just kicks the dust away from the wicket, and it's fielded by the bowler as he comes in again, and he flights that one up, and that beats the wicket keeper, but is fielded by Trescothick.
I think it came off the pad, didn't it? Maybe?
Yes, it did.
I think he was trying to sort of shoulder arms at it and pad it away, but didn't get much pad on it.
Indeed. So in he comes again. Again another flighted one, but played nicely back. Perfect, correct. Sort of backward defensive stroke back to the bowler, and there's no run again, and there's a sort of short mid-wicket there for perhaps a mistimed pull or on drive, as that one is whipped down the ground and on drive straight to mid-on, and the batsman looks sort of disappointed there, as if he was hoping for runs from that. He's on 42 now. It really is gorgeous weather here. The sun's out, sun's shining, not a cloud in the sky really, as that's played down front of short leg for no run.
A good bit of turn there over the last couple of deliveries from Dockrell, but he might well. I mean, it looks as though he might be looking to get him out perhaps with a straighter one rather than the one that really turns back in. But this is really the first time we've seen the ball turn in the match. Dockrell was bowling really quite fruitlessly in the first innings. I mean, he got through 20 overs, but there really was no spin back then.
Yes, it's been an interesting wicket, this one. It's certainly Dockrell, I'm a big fan of watching him play for Ireland, and you can't help feeling that Ireland, it's such a shame they have to wait for, as long as they're having to wait for Test status, because obviously a lot of the players like Morgan are ending up in the England side, and you do feel that it would be a wonderful thing to see them play the longer forms of the game, because they seem a pretty good team to me, as Hussain bowls outside off stump, played out to off the back foot really to cover again, who is Trescothick. And again, that familiar field, a wide gully, and there's a point, and there's a short cover and a short mid-off, really. It's almost like there's two covers. And they're chatting away to each other as I speak there. Interesting field.
The Irish, going back to the Irish point, the way they performed against Pakistan as well in the recent ODI series, it really does merit more international cricket, especially in Ireland.
Absolutely, it's the same bowls, and that's on off stump, played back down toward mid-on. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it would. I think the international game is crying out for some fresh blood, something a bit different, and Ireland would be, surely things could be done a bit quicker. You sort of feel cricket shoots itself in the foot sometimes, and I'm sure a lot of people would really love to see Ireland play a Test match, and even if it's only one, which obviously probably would happen with admission first of all, but just would be a lovely thing to see. It may well be many years before we do, 2018, something like that, or 19 they were saying. It's the same bowls, and that's outside off stump, bat and pad close together, played lovely defensive stroke really, played out to cover, and Trescothick grabs the ball and shines it. So yes, Hildreth's innings, what was your take on that?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't see it.
You didn't?
No, I was as I say, it was in my exam this morning, so unfortunately I wasn't able to see that. But I'm very disappointed I missed it.
Indeed.
It was thermodynamics and mechanics.
Goodness me.
It was just horrendous, really. Absolutely horrid. 3-hour-long exam as well.
Goodness me. Hussein, in again, bowls. He goes back and forces it off the back foot into the covers for no runs. Yes, unfortunately, I can safely say I can give you absolutely no pearls of wisdom on those two subjects.
Probably a good thing too.
Had you said English literature, I could have waxed lyrical on Samuel Taylor Coleridge and his time on the Quantocks and William Wordsworth, and I could have gone on for hours, but unfortunately, thermodynamics, well, very important in cricket. I've heard the word mentioned many a time when
yes, of course,
talking about bowlers' actions and analysing. Remember this extraordinary footage I saw once from the late 70s, I'll go back to in a second, as Hussein bowls a wide one and it's driven nicely, but straight to that man in the covers. Yeah, I remember seeing some footage of all the great, possibly the greatest selection of fast bowlers that have ever played the game, really. You had all the West Indies fast bowlers, Roberts, Holding, Marshall, Croft, Garner, and you also had Thompson and Lilly, Bob Willis, and a few others that were all, I think this was out in Australia, they were all filmed with great scrutiny, and the footage still exists in the nets, and it was all slowed down, and it was to try and work out who was the fastest, but it was all slowed down, and all the thermodynamics were worked out and whatnot, and that's played back nicely to Hussein, and it really makes scintillating viewing in a sense, just to see the glorious actions in full throw, really. Holding's wonderful, graceful action that you'd never believe he was as fast as he was when you look at his action, but some people say he was over 95, if not more, miles an hour, and yes, it may well come in very useful for you if you're in life in cricket, most certainly.
Oh, goodness me. Well, I think the way the exam went, it's probably a good job that it won't. Yes,
exams are horrible.
Well, they are, particularly this one. Anyway.
Dockwell in again, it's a new over, and that's outside the off stump, played really nicely by Live, up to cover for no run. There's a short mid-wicket again, a short leg. He has a little chit-chat with the batsman, I noticed, in a friendly way after each ball, or rather Live does with him, as he waits again, and that's flighted again really nicely, but dibble-dobbled back to the bowler there, sort of bat and pad smothered the spin, and Dockwell picks it up in a workmanlike fashion, goes back and flips the ball from hand to hand and comes in again, and that's wide outside off stump, and he cuts hard, and that's going to be 4 runs. Lovely stroke, went back and all the time in the world, no trouble at all, just went back and smashed it away. And there's no one out there in that vacant offside, and Bob's your uncle, it was 4 runs, no problem at all. So that was meat and drink to him, wide and short outside the off stump. So that'll please him as he taps the crease with intent with his bat again, raises it, waits, and it's a carbon copy, but he late cuts that one. It's quite graceful. Did sort of look like a possible edge. I think it's going to be nearly 4. No, it's cut off with a bit of football work down there by the fielder, who is Sapphire, and that's returned. And they take a couple of runs, was that, I think, yes. So it was, had there been a gully, which there isn't, could have been a possible catch. But it was kind of guided, really. It wasn't a full stroke, really. As Dockwell, that bowls a quicker one on Midland leg, and it's killed by Live, who sort of somehow makes the ball stop, as sometimes happens with cricket balls, in the turf, and Dockwell almost comes down and meets the batsman to field it. As Dockwell comes in again, getting through this over, that's more flighted and defeats the batsman. Thoughts of an LBW appeal, but doesn't go for it. Well outside off stump, you'd assume from here. And the fielders all come across for the end of the over. He takes his cap from the umpire, and Martin Saggers, I believe, who wasn't playing that long ago, whereas I was mentioning yesterday when I was on air about Nick Cook, who it's lovely to see him here again today. Many as a time I've looked at that footage of him when I was a child from 1984, when possibly the most destructive batting lineup in history, or certainly one of the West Indians were smacking England to all parts, and he was a very, very slim Jim back then, and I remember him getting hit all over the place, but he was a fine bowler, as Hussein comes in again and bowls. That's a short one. He tries to bounce him, really. It was quite useful, but the batsman got right out of the way. It was going to have nothing to do with it. Had he been Adam Gilchrist, he might have attempted an uppercut over the slips, but given the situation, he probably wouldn't want to do that, but he just ducked. And had it been straight, it would have been a dangerous delivery. Talking of fast bowlers earlier, but
certainly
yes,
not the most well-directed bouncer, though.
No,
You've got to be getting it, make the batsman play when you bowl a bouncer.
Totally. It was the right sort of height, though. And he comes in again, and that's on middle and off, and played back up to mid-on for no run. And yes, Nick Cook. Yes, it's occasionally you see the footage on ESPN, I believe, from that series, and the Blackwash, as they used to call it. And it's lovely to see him here. Ex-players do often umpire.
Well,
No
maybe
benchmark of a great umpire, though. Sometimes guys who've never played can umpire really well, too.
Having seen Nick Cook's performance in that televised match against Warwickshire, it's you'd almost rather be seeing him playing than umpiring. Didn't have a very good game then.
Yeah. And he comes out, that's a long hop that's pulled, and it's pulled round the corner, and that's nearly 4, but no, there's a man on the boundary. That was really not a very good delivery. It was a sort of half-hearted attempt at a bouncer, but it actually wasn't even that quick in pace, and he went back and pulled it well, but not as well as he perhaps might have done. And in the end only gets a couple of runs for that one, but it's certainly not causing him any great stress, this bowling at the moment, which is a pity because he looks a useful bowler.
It's a shame when you've already bowled one bouncer in the over, you kind of expended most of the effort, so putting in a big pacey bouncer again is a bit too much to ask.
Effort. In he comes, that's much better. That's on middle and off and played correctly, nicely. Total textbook forward defensive back to the bowler, and there's no run. Again, the same field, as I said earlier, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys on the offside, as one of them, Trescothick, throws it to a conventional mid-off, who is Stephen Kirby, and I met a Yorkshire fan actually in the Colin Atkinson Pavilion earlier, who was talking about Stephen, how fond of him she was, and how excited she was to see him actually. I sung his praises, of course. He's a great asset. Hussain bowls, but not a great delivery. It's in the block hole, played up to mid-on for no run.
Steve Kirby was fantastic on day one. You could see he was absolutely right up for the challenge. He was shouting every ball, and I think he said at one stage, "I'm here with you all day, Adam," or "with you all day, Lythia." And unfortunately, he kind of was when as Lyth went on to score the century. So, yeah,
what a match it's been for him as he waits now again to joust with Hussain, who comes in and bowls a wide one. Doesn't really challenge him at all with that one, and that's left alone. And yes, and the lady I was speaking to said she bumped into Jeff Boycott up in last week. It's a game coming up at Scarborough, of course. But it must be funny playing against your old county. But it happens a lot nowadays. Used to be more unusual, particularly Yorkshiremen. It was always, a sign that there'd been some great falling out. I can remember when Boycott left and when Railingworth left back in the 80s, there was these to play for Leicestershire. It always was indicative of some sort of drama behind the scenes, but now it's all perfectly commonplace. As Dockwell is stopped from coming in by umpire Saggers. He was just about to bowl, but was stopped. The batsman wasn't ready, and that's a nice delivery on off stump, but played correctly, nicely back again by Balance, who's 20 not out. He hasn't faced much bowling actually since tea. Lyth on 48, eyeing up that 50. That's swept away nicely down to fine leg for a single. And they trot through, almost jog through in a leisurely fashion for that one. And the score goes on now to 78 for 3. And Dockwell again, just spinning the ball from hand to hand in those sunglasses of his in this bright sunshine, and that's outside off stump, played nicely down into the offside for no run. I was chatting in the last match about I was very honoured to attend Christopher Martin Jenkins's service at St Paul's Cathedral, which was an extraordinary experience, as that's not a good ball. That's a full toss, which is on driven up to kind of deep mid-wicket. It's 2 mid-wickets, really, and they take a quick single. And what a loss he's been.
Yes, this was one of the first England series that he hasn't been around to commentate on.
Massive loss. For me, certainly my favourite to listen to. And an extraordinary service it was too. All the great and the good were there. It was a nice day. It's the day before a certain you-know-who's funeral the next day, so there was a lot of security around, but it was quite a very moving experience. Some lovely poetry, some beautiful hymns, and a lot of the great and good in the cricket world were there as it's hit up to mid-on for no run. There's one slip, there's a fine leg, there's a short leg, sort of mid-off, mid-on. There's a short mid-wicket as he comes down the wicket, but forces it up. They think of a quick single, but they abort the idea because there's a mid-on Stephen Kirby, I think, who again takes the ball and has that tremendously friendly demeanour of his, and a cross between a kind of friendly aggression. Sounds like a contradiction in terms, but anyone who sees him will know what I mean. He's good fun.
When you see him off the field, he's a totally different person to when he's on. He's kind of he seems to be kind of the butt of some of the team jokes from what I could gather from those wonderful behind the scenes clips that we got from Nick Compton last season. It's a bit disappointing now that he's gone off to England that we don't get those anymore. I really enjoyed it when we got those.
Well, Craig, compose clips or compose.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Kept thinking of Last of the Summer Wine, not one of my favourite shows. Whenever I'd see the name,
never seen it. Never seen it. Don't intend to.
I'm more into your sort of Steptoe and Sons and your Porridge, but something a bit more
Porridge, good.
PC. As Craig Mester is now into the attack and bowls, and that's on middle and off, and played nicely through up on the onside and mid on, leaps across and he takes a single, and that's his 50. Raises his back to the crowd with happy look of satisfaction, waves it in our direction, and well, we've got a bit like yesterday. We had this field position. We've got Trescothick at a very short cover again. Is he going back to it? Yes, it's sort of for the drive. Funnily enough, Lyth was doing the same with Trescothick batting yesterday, as Meshday comes in and bowls on off stump, and it's played out into the covers for no run. And funnily enough, I suppose the idea with Trescothick was, he might get a miscued drive to that chap, but in the end, he just missed a straight one, didn't he? It was out LBW yesterday. Mm. But perhaps giving Lyth some of his own tactics back to him in kind, as Trescothick claps in that position, and young Meshday comes in again and bowls, and that's a straight one, driven hard, beautifully, and that's going to be 4 runs, and bang it goes into the boundary boards. Lovely on drive down the ground, sweetly timed. It was in the block hole, but it was really not a great delivery, and was sweetly timed, almost a full toss really.
It's the second one of those on drives that he's played, and he was particularly good off the back foot, I think, in his first innings. Very strong cutter of the ball, and he also good at driving it through the covers, but very, very classy on drive there. It
was, yes, as Meshday again on middle and off, played up to short to cover really. Trescothick, who picks it up and immediately looks over in the direction of the Colin Atkinson Pavilion. I don't know why. He was sort of perhaps deep in thought there. You'd think from the body language that the game was very much still alive, to the players' credit.
That's good. I'm sure both coaches would love to see that.
There's no sort of hunched shoulders or hands in pockets or anything, though there is one fielder on the boundary doing some press-ups. He gets up as Meshta runs in, and that's played out into the onside, and Sapphire runs across from sort of mid-wicket to field, and there's no run.
Every time I look at Gary Balance's, I was talking a little bit about this earlier, but every time you look at Gary Balance's record, it is absolutely outstanding. I mean, he averages over 50 in both important forms of cricket, and 1,400s in 87 matches. He's a really fine player.
In comes Meshta again, and that's, whipped round the corner, imperious stroke, down to the fielder, but there's a fielder out there on the leg side boundary. Sort of went back and whipped it away, almost not really a pull, more a sort of whip stroke. Nicely played. Yeah, Balance. Does he play for Zimbabwe? Or?
No, I believe he's trying to qualify for England at the moment because,
really?
Yes, he's already played for the England Lions. I think it must have been in their match against was it South Africa last year? I think.
Did, yes, actually, I remember now. Yeah.
And yes, so I think presumably he must already have qualified for England. So, well, if he keeps that record going, I mean, you can't argue with it really.
Indeed.
And 56 matches, averaging 51 and a half, pretty much.
Played for Zimbabwe under-19s, I see, as Dockrell's in, and that's flighted on Midland leg and played, smothers the spin, does balance, and Dockrell fields. One slip, a short leg, there's a short sort of mid-wicket, there's a wide mid-wicket sort of on the boundary, there's a fine leg, there's a mid-off and a mid-on. And a cover as well, as Dockrell's in again and bowls, flights that one, and again, action replay of the last delivery, just sort of smothers the spin and it dribbles up the wicket. And short leg comes in to field it and throws it back to Dockrell. Absolute persistent sun here. It's lovely, just right really, not too hot, not too cold, as that's played up to short mid-wicket, and that's fielded and there's no run again.
Sun-drenched Trescothick stand, but obviously some people who don't want to get sunburn sitting in the Somerset stand, which is in shadow at the moment.
Yeah, good idea. It's played again back to the bowler, smothers the spin. Yes, it's Panama hat day today, really. It's just lovely to see, really. It's been so long, it seems, since we've had a lovely hot day, as Dockrell comes in, and that's kind of edged, really, past Trescothick at first slip, and he jogs through for a single. It's interesting now, isn't it? You know, players from different parts of the world playing for teams. It's, again, Zimbabwe, another case where you sort of feel a bit for them. You know,
yeah, well, after all their recent crisis, the cricketing crisis, with them being lots of players, well, in a few years ago now, but lots of players refusing to play for the country and moving abroad.
Dockrell in again, flights that, and it's driven back into the turf, almost a crowd catch, because he fielded it well, and it must have stung a little bit as he did so off his own bowling. Yeah, a bit like Ireland again, you know, you sort of feel that they produce cricketers that are snuffled up by other teams, be they England or South Africa perhaps. I don't think a Zimbabwean's played for South Africa yet, as far as I know, but
No.
It's sort of it's sad because it doesn't give you feel the chance for those teams to really improve. And Zimbabwe have been, you know, when you look at the Andy Flower era of the late '90s, they were really developing into a fine team.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to have Henry Alonga come to my school. He was he's doing a tour of talks, and he was talking about why. Not really about cricket actually, but more about why he felt he had to leave his country.
Yes.
Just too threatened, but so really interesting to hear Henry Alonga's thoughts on things.
Goodness me, you've got Hildreth one side, short mid-on, and a short cover as that's cut beautifully, again by balance though this time, and that's nearly 4 runs, but they're taking 3. Yes, they're coming back for the 3rd, and the throw comes in from the boundary, and he tries to perhaps run out Lyth coming back there, but by throwing the ball back down onto the stumps from what was a wayward high throw, but in the end, Barrow didn't hit the stumps. But all was well, and they took 3, I believe, as Lyth is now facing. Yes, he's got a perfect accompaniment there on the onside and the offside. He's got Trescothick at a short cover and a sort of mid-on that's almost straight up the wicket, as that's down the leg side, and a leg glance that was nearly a big appeal for that, and it was actually dropped by the keeper, so I don't know if that got a little feather on it.
It would have been interesting to have seen the umpire's signal if they'd been able to come through for the single, but judging by the reaction, there was a little tickle on that. But Alex Barrow in general has kept really well behind the stumps, I think, with especially seeing I think this must be his first class or first team game behind the stumps, or at least one of his first.
Meshter, again, bowls down the leg side, not bothering the batsman there really, as Lyth almost skips with a kick and a jump down the wicket there, which probably really speaks volumes of his body language of a very relaxed situation. He then mouths something to the bowler, who sort of looks across quizzically. Perhaps there's a little bit of byplay between the two of some sort. I doubt it's anything that serious, given the circumstances, but we've got a sort of wide gully. We've got a point, conventional cover, and a very short cover, and a short mid-on. And that's driven past that short mid-on up to a conventional mid-on for no run on drive. And the batsman actually at this end is live now. It is very wide. He's not in the typical position simply because Hildreth would be ruining his view from the other end of the batsman facing. As Meshed is in again, and that's wide outside off stump, played up to cover for no run.
It's interesting. They've used a very kind of a field where they're always expecting the batsman to play down the ground with all these fielders in the V, I suppose as it's called. But but in reality, they've played a lot of their attacking and scoring shots through sort of more cover and points. So
yes.
I don't know. I'm not really sure about this. At least they're trying something, I suppose.
No slips, of course. As Mashday, and again on off stump, whipped around the corner, wristy stroke, almost a subcontinental edge to that from the left-hander, and it sort of dribbles out to the boundary for a single. And it's 91 for 3 now, Lyth on 51 and Balance on 31. That's the end of the over. And it's interesting talking about these different countries, the sort of so-called weaker test-playing nations. Sometimes you get an upset, but it's interesting when you look back at the winter. You know, England were nearly beaten by New Zealand, and that same New Zealand side was whitewashed in every match by West Indies not long before. So you feel that there's some interesting results that can happen. But if teams aren't able to play, certainly West Indies haven't got a test match till December, and that's against weaker opposition, and not much until next year, really, which is appalling. So you'd hope that will change as he comes down the wicket and lofts it, and that's going to be a catch. He's going to be caught by Kirby. It's high in the air, and it's caught. He's caught it. He came down the wicket to on-drive it. He was going for glory, a big 6 down the ground. But in the end, Balance was caught. He's gone for 31, and they all come across as the drinks come out. And Kirby looks absolutely delighted with himself. That was up in the air for quite a long time. The batsman came down the wicket to hit it straight into the Ian Botham stand, or well, more into the Colin Atkinson, really. But he really didn't know where it was going because he was just looking upward. And from mid-on, Kirby didn't have too far to run in. And he took a good catch because it went high in the air, possibly into the sun as well. And that produced a little bit of mirth for the Somerset faithful. And a wicket for Doctorall, and he's gone for 31.
We were commenting on the fact that there hasn't been a 6 in this match yet, earlier on, and that was attempted to be the first one, but a good catch taken by Steve Kirby there. It was, as you say, up in the air a very long time, and might even have been looking into the sun if the with the angle at the moment. Yeah. So it was a good catch, and that's first wicket since the real flurry of wickets that we had early on in the innings when Kirby got 2 in the over, and then Trigo struck again soon afterwards. So
Adil Rashid coming in now, century in the first innings. I saw Rashid play back in 2007 for the MCC at Lords when he was 18, and he bowled a vicious faster ball, I remember, and quicker ball. Has a real subcontinental flair to him. Reminds me a little bit of Mushtaq in his follow-through. But he's batting. I didn't realise he was such a good batsman. He's been getting some good scores recently, and no doubt the listeners, those listening, will have heard Julian Katanak over the tannoy just now. Of course, used to be one of our colleagues. I had dinner with him last night, actually.
Very nice.
Good friend of mine.
Well, I was saying Rashid has turned himself into... Well, his bowling has just gone so far downhill that he's turned himself into a batting all-rounder now rather than a bowling all-rounder. And it's really good for him that he's managed to do that, because his bowling really was taking an awful turn after he was dropped by England. But his batting has come on leaps and bounds in the last few years, while his bowling has nosedived.
Indeed. He's another left-hander as he faces. And that's played back to the bowler for no run again. And yes, it's interesting because we've got Ahmed coming over. Actually, that was Lyth who played that delivery back.
Crossed,
Sorry, I was looking at the scoreboard as that's flighted on Midland leg and played up to short mid-wicket for no run. And spinner situations, we've got this Ahmed chap that Australia are trying to fast-track into the team to do with visas.
Yes.
He's from Pakistan. Certainly Hussey said he was the best spinner he's faced since Warne in Australia. As that's played up to mid-on, shy at the stumps. They take a quick single, but it misses. And they take that single again there without, thankfully, hitting the stumps from their point of view. But it was almost a run-out chance. As mid-on Kirby looks like he's devastated at the fact that he missed there. I think he felt that would have been out. But yes, it's...
I've seen absolutely nothing of this Ahmed.
Well, no,
what's his first name? But I mean, I watched most of the Big Bash, the 2020 tournament in Australia. I don't think he even played in much in that. Fawad Ahmed.
Rashid, right-hander, faces, and that's driven really nicely, actually. Timed that well. But he gets no run for it. It's a point. But yes, it's a bit quite funny, really. I mean, you never know. But to say he's the best spinner since Shane Warne in Australia, the word's in Australia, not obviously from Australia, as Dockwell comes in, and that's on leg stump. Oh, nearly a catch for short leg. Bobbled up. Rashid went back to try and glance it round the corner, but short leg sort of dived across, but couldn't get it, and I think has hurt his knee a little bit. Again, wearing familiar spectacles there. That's...
I haven't really read much about this whole story, but just looking now, it seems as though it's happening at the same time as they're just passing a new bill through the Australian Parliament that will actually allow him to play. Whether, I mean, you've got to think there's no coincidence there, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, that was Gregory, by the way. Sorry, that was at short leg that nearly took that catch. But yes, it's fascinating, really. You wonder this sort of war of propaganda between the two teams. It's all a bit of kidology or what it's all about. Let's hope we see a more spicy series, though, than some of the recent series that have happened as Meshday comes in, and that's wide outside off stump and driven up to cover for no run. But, yes.
With the struggles of Nathan Lyon and Glenn Maxwell in India, the two, well, I suppose the incumbent spinners. I mean, if you're not going to be taking wickets regularly in India as a spin bowler, then there's got to be something wrong. So, see why they've gone elsewhere for.
That's why I'll always be sad that we can't see Graham Swan bowling on a Karachi dust bowl.
Oh yes, cricket in Pakistan.
Meshday, and again bowls outside. Well, actually down the leg side. They go for a tickle round the corner, and there's an appeal for a catch behind from a leg glance, but it's more hopeful than in the positive, and they don't get an affirmative answer from the umpire, who just looks away. As that short mid-on is still there. Hildreth, who is he's just on the green outside of the wicket itself. So he's really where the batsman at the other end would normally stand, who is, again, Rashid's, who's standing wide as Meshta's in, and that's played up to that man, Hildreth, who picks it up. It was in the air for a second, because Hildreth looks as if to say, I could have caught that. But he'd have had to be really on top of the batsman to catch that one, which could cause great danger to him, and he'd need a helmet. But
I'm not sure. We've got this silly mid-on and then the mid-on, but it's a bit obsolete, really, Jamal Hussain there at mid-on, because anything hit softly is going to be stopped by Hildreth.
Meshday, and again, bowls on-off stump, played up into the covers. Point runs across, and there's no run. Yeah, going back to spinners, West Indies, of course, producing some interesting spinners at the moment. You sort of feel that 2020 is actually doing them more harm than good in a way, because Narayan isn't getting the chance to sort of cut his teeth in the longer forms of the game. Which
Shillingford as well
be a bad thing, really. Shillingford's a good bowler too. I see quite a lot of West Indies cricket, and would love to see them get in the big league again. As Meshday bowls outside off stump, driven but through the fielder there at cover, who that'd be harsh to say it was a misfield. It was well timed. He dived across, but it kind of went through him. But yes.
And it seems as though their cricket board just cannot get anything organised, doesn't it? Their cricket board just seems to have, in the last few years, just been ripping apart West Indies cricket, because it could have been a totally different story if you've had people like Gale and Sarwan playing for
all the time,
playing for Test cricket, consistently.
And Samuels, who was banned for 2 years unofficially. No one really knows why. Some mysterious phone call with a bookmaker. That's a bit harsh, a phone call, but no, all very confusing and often mercurial selections. People picked, dropped. Dwayne Smith, for example. Meshday in again outside off stump, played by Rashid out into the covers. Of course, Gale possibly coming to play 2020 cricket here, but you've got to sort of feel that that's the sort of signal again. Great fun to watch as a player, but you want to see West Indies players coming here and playing, proper 4-day cricket. I mean, obviously Sarwan it's quite a rarity, really, because he's captaining Leicestershire. But in recent years, when West Indies teams have been, they literally have had no one in the team who's even played here, you know. So
no. And county cricket, obviously, such an important sort of growth bed for international cricketers.
Certainly, West Indies have arguably produced some of the, if not the greatest cricketers the game's produced. Certainly, Gary Sobers is seen as the greatest all-rounder. I mean, what was weird about him is he could bowl spin as well as he could bowl fast, as well as he could bowl medium, and he could bat at any position. I mean, I can't think of anyone who's ever played that could open, play down the order. It's extraordinary. He was like a robot. Anyway, that's tossed up. That's a full toss and driven, and that is an attempt at a good stop there. He does pretty well, does Trigo, who throws it in meaningfully. It hits the batsman on the back, which produces possibly a howl of pleasure from Tractor.
It's hit the stumps, actually. So he hit the stumps direct there. But
because I think the ball ricocheted and hit.
Yes, I think it double whammy there from Trigo.
Whammy for Tractor to our left,
he's loving it.
Very animated under the scoreboard. That's a quicker one, but it's wide, and it's a nice cut stroke, but well stopped. Good stop, because that came right off the meat, and Hildreth now howls with a bit of personal pain there as he winces, as that possibly stung him quite a bit there.
Tractors, I'm sure, needing plenty of nourishment on a day like this, hot day like this.
Again, flighted but wide and padded away. Used to see that a lot to spinners years ago, this habit of padding the ball away. Thankfully, you don't see it quite so much, but Live again, who just the one slip, short leg again. In comes Dockwell, flighted mightily into the air there, but played up to mid-on for no run, no trouble at all. Almost played into slow motion by the left-hander. Slight Gower look to that stroke, but Gower has to be the most, apart from Lara, the most graceful batsman I've ever seen. As Dockwell comes in, and that's on off stump, played down in front of him by Live. But yes, going back to the West Indies, it's of course Garner and Richards, possibly the two greatest ever acquisitions by a county team in terms of foreign players, and Doc was in again and on off stump smothers the spin, no run, and incredible players really. I mean, Garner an average of 18 as a bowler playing for Somerset. Richards, I think, nearly an average of 50 as a batsman. Just wonderful days really, and of course where I live over in Nether Stowey, there's some interesting literature history because of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who of course wrote Rime of the Ancient Mariner back in 1797, but also Ian Botham, of course, nearly moved to Nether Stowey apparently. Peter Denning, Dasher Denning, used to live over in Stowey as well, though I didn't know it when my family moved down there that he did, which sadly he's no longer with us, which is a great shame. Real character he was. As Meshta now comes in over the wicket. Again, those two short covers, and that's down the leg side, and doesn't make contact, no run. It's a short cover, and a short mid-on again, as you'd call that, to the right-hander Rashid, who sort of wide gully, no slips. But yes, the board is a bit mad over in West Indies. Let's hope that it can all be rearranged and something can be sorted out, because the talent's undoubtedly there.
Yeah, I mean, Darren Sammy's really been moving the team forward as captain in the last few years.
Yeah, Meshta's in again, and that's played on middle and leg, out onto the leg side for a single.
There was a bit of criticism, I think, from some people in the West Indies about Darren Sammy, but I mean, I don't really. I mean, he's every time he's captain, West Indies seem to be much more competitive. But yeah,
it's sad because of course the greatest captain that one's probably ever seen, that really where you wouldn't mind if he didn't score a run and didn't take a catch, was Mike Brearley. He was just such an incredible manager and thinker of the game and psychologist. I mean, he is a psychologist now, I think. As Meshta, and again on off stump, played up to that Hildreth again at that short mid-on, no run. Such a great thinker of the game, that and a great worker out of people's psychologies. That, but to be in his, Sammy, it does bring something to the team, but his figures are quite modest, and I think that's why. I think there's a feeling that there are so many West Indian all-rounders around: Pollard, Bravo, Sammy, Smith. You only really need one or two at the most, as that's on off stump, played up to Hildreth again for no run. if they did find a great quartet of fast bowlers, a la Holding, Roberts, Marshall, Garner, Ambrose, Walsh, those sorts of people again, where would they fit them in?
Yeah, I mean the other thing with being West Indies captain, it must be such a difficult job. Obviously, as we were talking about with the board, but also the fact that you have a lot of people who come from actually a lot of different countries playing for the West Indies as well. It must be quite different.
Indeed. Meshed it in again, outside off stump, left alone, no run. Oh yes. I follow it quite closely. I've got friends out in the West Indies, and the interest is still there. It's just, Clive Lloyd, of course, went up to be president recently of the team, of the board rather, I think it was, and was politely told he wasn't good enough, and they, I think, got an ex-tourism man in, and you sort of hear that, and you think, well, what on earth's that all about? Anyway, it's none of our business, is it? We're not West Indian. Meshed it in again, short outside the off stump, hit back to point. I think the reason we care is that, as I say, produced certainly in the top 3 of all-time teams, maybe even some people believe the greatest team of all time. Obviously you've got the 48 Australians with Bradman, you've got the Aussie team of the 90s and also the 70s, but that West Indies team, there just wasn't a weak spot there. And when people say there was no spinner, well, Garner almost did the spinner job, and they certainly, actually, Roger Harper was a very underrated spinner. It was Lance Gibbs before him, and back in the 50s, Ramadin and Valentine, but produced some fine spinners down the years, and certainly at the moment there seems to be a real conveyor belt of spinners for them. They just need one that will get their teeth into Test cricket. But the problem is, as I say, they're hardly playing any Test cricket. I think to December they've got Zimbabwe, and next year I think they've got. I'm really not sure. I know they've got a clutch of one-dayers against England, and we're not playing a Test against them, which is odd. We're not playing them until 2017 in England. And that's on off stump, played back to Dockrell for no run by Rashid.
Well, you wonder with all that absence whether that might be a good opportunity for Ireland to maybe say to the West Indies, come on and play a Test match, or at least play an unofficial one.
Faster one by Dockrell on off stump, played by Rashid up to mid-off for no run, who's on now 1 not out, incidentally, the score 94 for 4. Yeah, well, and also perhaps for West Indies to rearrange its administration. As Dockrell comes in, flighted and driven hard out into the covers for no run, though.
Well, Michael Holding talks a great game when he's on. Oh, yeah. When he's on Sky Sports. He always seems to sound as if he knows what's going on within the board, and always critical when needs be. And you wonder someone like him.
Absolutely, down the leg side, paddles round the corner, a kind of not really a sweep stroke, a kind of paddle really. Down the leg side, not a very good delivery. 4 runs as Sapphire jogs across to retrieve the ball. Very easy. The sort of delivery, if somebody said to me, here, pad up, Ben, you haven't played for 10 years, but go out there, face a delivery. If you were almost as good as winning the lottery, really, if you're a big cricket fan, the chance to couldn't happen, of course, in your dreams, but you'd want a delivery like that down the leg side. Easy as you like, just sort of paddle it away for 4. Thank you very much. Dockrell, again outside the off stump, played back to the bowler, much better delivery this time. We got, as I say, just the one slip. The cover, mid-off, mid-on, mid-wicket. Short leg. Oh, and he leaves that alone. And there's a big oohs and ahs from the fielders there, wondering if it might hit the stumps as he left it, but wasn't really going to hit them, far too high.
I was just looking back at some of the. I've got Darren Sammy's profile, some of the teams that he's played for, and
you haven't got the Playfair there. You've got the Crick Info.
Yeah, I've gone for them. I don't know. But anyway, I was just looking back at it, bringing back memories of that Stanford Super Series.
Oh gosh,
the Stanford Superstars that Darren Sammy includes in his long list of teams represented. I remember that one because they had Middlesex went out there and played in that as well, and then Trinidad and Tobago, I believe, as champions of the Caribbean 2020, in addition to the Superstars and England.
Meshed it in again, by the way. Bowls outside off stump, no run.
It was a very strange tournament, though, wasn't it? With sort of England versus, I believe England played Middlesex, didn't they, in one of the games, or at least, very odd to see that happening.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the IPL, I have to admit.
Oh gosh, no.
I'm still fairly young.
I can't keep up with it even if I wanted to.
I'm quite young still, and it just doesn't appeal to me. Anyway, Mester in again, bowls outside off stump, middle and off, played up to Hildreth at that short mid-on. Yeah, that was a strange series, and what a bizarre figure poor old Stanford was now, rotting away in jail.
Now in jail, yeah.
I mean, of course, given the red carpet treatment at Lord's by
the helicopter, wasn't it? It was
Clark,
flown in on a helicopter.
Be better off inviting an alien to Lord's, really, from Mars. I mean, probably the worst person you could have had. But of course, no one was to know, I suppose. But Mester in again. Oh my goodness me, that's a bumper. A high full toss that almost hit him in the head. But he paddled it quite safely round the corner and nearly got 4 runs for it as fine leg runs across some fields. That was a looping full toss round head height.
It looked sort of
bumper.
Attempted slower ball, though,
yes,
maybe.
It slipped out. Very easy thing to do, actually, if you're not used to bowling. But if you bowl as often as he does, it's surprising. But it's 102 now for 4. Light ripple of applause. Lyth on to 55. Rashid on to 5. And he's in again, getting through his overs here. On leg stump, played round the corner for a single. He's coming back possibly for the second as Hussain runs out towards the boundary. And, they take a couple of runs. But what were we saying? We were talking about...
the Stanford Super Series.
Oh, yes. Well, best forgotten, I suppose.
Yeah. He was a Texan, wasn't he, Alan Stanford?
Yeah. Great.
I know a lot about cricket. Let's
I like baseball. It's not too bad. It's not far off a bit of baseball.
Yeah. I follow baseball, actually.
Yeah, I saw baseball when I was out there, and that's driven up to cover. Yeah, I've been to Texas, and I really enjoyed it, actually.
Will you see the Rangers?
I never got to see any baseball. I'd love to have, but I always had fascinating conversations out there because I remember teaching this American the rules of cricket, and he was teaching me the rules of baseball. And, of course, there's this Tumblety, I think it was Tumblety, what was it, Doubleday myth that it was Abner Doubleday who invented baseball. And, of course, there's a lot of documented proof now that it was cricketers who invented it, as that's miscued up to a sort of short mid-wicket for no run. And, yes, it was sort of a secondary game that cricketers in the 18th, 19th century played that visited New York. Because at one stage, when George Washington was president, cricket was the national sport.
And the first ever Test match was, or first ever, I think, international game of cricket was between the US and Canada.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. You explained that. I explained that to him out there, and he couldn't believe it. Mester in again, bowls on off stump, played out to short mid wicket, Sapar for no run, and it was just great fun describing it. And, the players coming together.
Is this the handshake?
I think there is the great shake.
Yeah, there we go. Trescothick's shaking the hands of Adam Lyth.
Yes, I think that's it. That's the end of the theatre for this afternoon, I'm afraid. Down with the curtain on this match. It's been a entertaining match. Really robbed of could have been an exciting finish had we not lost the first day. Never can you imagine 2 more different days than today and Tuesday when it was absolutely torrential rain. But today is absolutely gorgeous. But yes, the match has come to an end with Yorkshire 104 for 4. So in the end, the match is drawn. But Lyth on 57 could have perhaps got another 100, 2 in one match. Rashid not out 5 at the end. And yes, it was an entertaining session, this last session. And indeed, 10 to 5, just as was prophesied by the steward I was chatting to earlier, has come to pass. So, but no, an interesting day's play, and but a sad end in a way to a match that could have, perhaps with that extra day, become more exciting. Because Yorkshire, with a lead of 150, were in a useful position. Now a lead of, what would that be now, 250 odd? Yeah,
246, or 244. Sorry, I think.
You can imagine if there was a day left, if Somerset were able to have got through a few quick wickets before close of play today, and there'd been a day left tomorrow, and they needed to chase 270 or something.
Well, particularly when they were down at 21 for 3 after 11 overs. I mean, you never. I mean, with the history that we were talking about in this match of Somerset historically here at Taunton being able to chase down enormous targets, including that massive 4-5-7 in 2009, anything was possible. But unfortunately, sort of fizzling out a little bit this last session, which is a bit of a shame, but.
That's the nature of the beast. It's still a great quality cricket. Even to those tuning in who, I remember explaining to the American I met out there about cricket that he couldn't understand the concept of a draw, And I said, well, sometimes there can be a very exciting draw. The other thing that they hate is how long the game goes on, but that's the thing. That's what makes cricket so wonderful, is how long it goes on.
I mean, a game of baseball lasts about the same time as a 2020 game, so that's the longest that any sustained period. And of course, you have gaps in between the innings as well, so it really is broken up. And of course, there's no overtime or anything like they have in all their other sports with extra innings in baseball and overtime and in football and hockey.
Yes,
have to use the American accent so we know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But no, it was entertaining describing pulling his leg, really, even though there's some evidence that, as I say, cricketers... it was either the cricketers who invented the baseball, or certainly the rules were adapted from cricket. The wicket changed to a diamond. The sort of New York area, it's kind of a grey area, quite which, but it's fascinating to chat to them. Trying to teach people from other cultures about cricket. But that's the wonderful thing about cricket, though, that there's so many diverse cultures that
I think
come together, such as Pakistan and all those islands out in the West Indies. And
I think one of my earlier memories was on holiday in France when I was trying to teach a couple of Moroccans how to play cricket, because I brought my bat and ball, being a young cricket fan, and wanted to play out there in the sunshine in France. And these Moroccans came up to us and asked what on earth we were doing. So I was trying to teach them. Not only was there the language barrier in terms of actual language, but in terms of the sport as well. So that was interesting. It must have been about 5 or 6 then.
Well, of course, Ted Dexter was born in Italy. You see Italian Divenuto. You see some cricketers from unusual parts of the world. I remember, of course, a chap from Holland now who played for Australia in a few games.
And recently, Geraint Jones, who was born in Papua New Guinea.
Yes. It's a wonderful thing. And, of course, Arul Sapaya, of course, from Malaysia.
Yeah.
One of my best friends swam for Malaysia in the 88 Olympics and many years ago. And he couldn't believe it when I said, oh, no, I think he's from Malaysia anyway.
Which Olympics was that in 88?
Oh, the Seoul Olympics.
The Seoul, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arul Sapaya, I think, played some cricket in his early career internationally for Malaysia. And I think his brother may well still play internationally for Malaysia in the lower tiers for international cricket.
Fascinating stuff. Well, anyway, so for listeners out there who have joined us this afternoon, we've certainly enjoyed bringing this coverage to you, and thank you for indulging us in our conversation. It's lovely to talk about cricket, and as well as looking at the events on the field. And with a game like this, obviously, you might forgive us some imaginative conversation given the state of the play of the match, but it's certainly a beautiful scene that we're looking out on now. It really is a scene here of beautiful green grass and sunny weather, and it really is hopefully going to stay like this for future matches. I know there's a big 40 over one on Sunday.
40 over match on Sunday, and then one at Lords on Tuesday. So 2 big games coming up in the 40 over competition, and then the championship match against Durham coming up very quickly on Thursday. So a very, very busy week of action for Somerset. So certainly no time for them to take stock after this game. They're straight back into action. No
sleep for the wicked. Well, of course, in this match, I'm sure those listening will know, but we'll just go through the scorecard quickly. Yorkshire, of course, 450 for 5 declared after that first day washout. Lyth's wonderful 105. Balance 100 and Rashid 103. Then Somerset 310 with Trescothick's 74. Hildreth 115, being the notable knocks, as well as some cameos from Elgar and Meshta. Really, in terms of the bowling, side bottoms figures were pretty good, but overall it was a team effort. Everyone chipping in for Yorkshire getting wickets, and Yorkshire in the second innings here, Lyth finishing not out 57, faced 134 balls, 6 fours. Sayers was caught. Trescothick bowled Kirby for 1. Phil Jakes LBW bowled Kirby for 0, and so Kirby giving his all today. Gale LBW bowled Trigo for 4, and Balance caught Kirby bowled Dockrell for 31. Rashid was not out 5. 2 no balls in all, 4 extras. So for 4 wickets down, 104 in the end, and the match drawn here at the county ground for this Division 1 LV County Championship clash between Yorkshire and Somerset. Well, I guess we better love and leave our listeners. It's been a pleasure as always. We'll hope to join you again for the next encounter, which I believe is...
Yep, Thursday against Durham in the
indeed.
Championship. But those two one-day matches coming up on Sunday and Tuesday. So
yeah, I'll be looking forward to that.
Exciting times.
Absolutely. Well, for myself and for my colleague...
Goodbye.
And indeed, it's been a lovely scene here, looking out over this green grass, and a wonderful wonderful match really for Yorkshire. They'll be pleased with this performance. They've been quite clinical at times, not as clinical and as focused and as lethal really as Middlesex were, who really were fabulous. But Yorkshire have played well here, and it's been an entertaining fixture. So from us both, we're going to leave you for now. And we do hope you'll join us for the next match, County Championship match against Durham. From us both, goodbye.